Hey there, Pete Erickson here. We are having a blast here at VOCE Global. This is part of our fireside chat series, and I'm excited about this next conversation. This is somebody who I've known for many years, I think coming up on 5 years since we launched VOCE. He has been a kind of a true leader in this industry in terms of like shaping conversational AI across various, verticals. I think most notably in the entertainment in media space, he's done some really fascinating work there. We'll get into that in a little bit, but he's also got some late breaking news with regards to his company, Skilled Creative, that he founded and where things are headed. I want to welcome to the virtual stage here, Mr. Brandon Kaplan. Brandon, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Pete. Always a pleasure.
It's always great to have you. You've got such deep knowledge in the space, and you know it so well. I think what I'd like to, we're in our 5th year for VOCE, which is kind of wild that we launched in 2018. But I think my first question for you is, how much has conversational AI kind of as an industry changed in those 5 years? Like, what's the difference between when we launched in 2018 and today?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, not at all, and in some ways, completely. In you're 5 years old, and your organization, Skilled Creative, got founded in 2017. So we're about 5.5 years old. So our kind of birth together and journey has been running in parallel. I'd say the technology at its core hasn't really changed a lot. I mean, conversational AI is still conversational AI is still conversational AI. It's finding ways to create smart technologies that allow audiences to converse through tech.
Right.
The business of conversational AI has shifted completely. I think that in 2017, people were really kind of huddled around Amazon and Google with the kind of launch of Alexa and the Google Assistant, seeing what's going to happen here. Are we going to have a complete replication of Apple and the iPhone marketplace? And in some ways, there have been great successes in those ecosystems. In some ways, it hasn't grown in the ways we thought it might, but it's grown in other types of ways. And then this whole new crop of different user interfaces and platforms and technologies have popped up in the last, really, I'd say 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
That have fundamentally shifted how we view conversational AI, where it's not singularly focused on one platform or one channel. It's this broad series of user interfaces that we can deploy that constitute, conversational AI today.
It's a great answer. It's funny. My wife and I just this morning, we were talking about our kids. They're in 4th and 5th grade. And I said, they speak with 3 or 4 different AI assistants on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We have an Alexa in the kitchen. My daughter has a Google Assistant in her bedroom. They both have Apple Watches and they use Siri a lot. And then they talk to the TV remote. We also use voice in the car. So it's like their lives are surrounded by AI in a ways that we can't even imagine. I'm dating myself, but I grew up with a rotary dial phone, so it is pretty amazing. I think you're right. I think ubiquity might be one of the big differences between today and 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think there is this great element of, there are these channels of voice. And when we talk to clients, we talk about voice from like a channel perspective and a UI perspective. But what's happened quietly over the last 5 years is the user interface of voice has been installed almost everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's being installed in more places. And so once you've got that baseline of distribution, well, now we can deepen the value chain there. Right. We can say, okay, like, we know that there's millions of devices in people's kitchen counters and bedrooms and bathrooms and living rooms. We know that millions of cars have this. We know that everyone's phone has this. We know that there's kiosks in places that have it. We know that our hearables and our watches and our wearables have it. We know that websites and mobile websites and other Web3 places are being voice activated. Well, now how do we deepen the usage of that user interface? And that's like the exciting, I think, next 3 years of what we're going to see of, well, how do we enrich those user interfaces with great experiences?
Yeah, I think it's that enrichment that I think is the big opportunity, and that sort of brings us to where we are in the market. Now I like to tell people that we're post hype cycle in voice, and now we're in long term growth. And that long term growth of the market, I think, is represented in that going deeper and deeper and deeper into the experience, so that people move from maybe they're doing speech to text a lot on their phone because they find it's easier to just tell somebody, send the text, and then read it coming back so it doesn't get read out, right? People are learning the value and the benefit of voice, but now that can then translate into so many other areas. So let's talk a little bit about skilled creative, because you've really specialized in a couple key verticals. Tell us a little bit more about the decisions you made with regards to where you're going to go with the company and where that's led you.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of 5 Cent tour is the company started as an emerging technology agency. We were working in a bunch of different spaces. Voice was a key pillar. The name of the company, Skilled Creative, was coined because of Alexa skills. But we were also working in computer vision and augmented reality and robotics and all these other cool technologies. Ended up hyper focusing in on voice for a number of reasons. Number one, the technology was just growing leaps and bounds. We needed to really niche down to find a way to hyper focus our business. And so we whittled down to a voice agency, which has been a really great decision.
Mm-hmm.
And then even within that, I think we organically, because we're a consumer marketing agency, ended up gravitating towards consumer packaged goods and the kind of media entertainment publishing sphere. And so if you look at our client list, really great brands, but they really predominantly live in those couple of spaces. We have some clients in healthcare and finance and other places, right, but predominantly in those consumer facing brand realms. And it's allowed us to build long-standing programs, really fun, creative campaigns.
Yeah.
And these brands get it. They get how to launch new platforms. So that's been our focus the last several years.
Well, I think it's worked out pretty well for you. This past week, or was it this week? I guess it was this week. You had a little bit of a coming out party with regards to Skilled Creative and the next steps and the next for the company. So I don't want to take your thunder. Tell us a little bit about what just happened, and tell us a little bit about the new organization going forward.
It's exciting. I mean, for me I call myself a creative technologist, although I'm not an engineer, but I'm a creative business person who's in the technology. You have to always be kind of adapting and trying to see as they say, where's the puck going. Mm-hmm. And we started in a broad set of technologies. We niched down into voice, and over the last year, really, I've been working with a handful of partners, and we've been putting together this business called Journey, which, as you mentioned, just got publicly announced last week. Incredibly exciting. The company publicly launched, and Skilled Creative was acquired and rolled up into this new business. And Journey is a new kind of holistic innovation consulting agency that is currently comprised of 3 distinct agencies that are rolling their services into Journey, and then some other really, really amazing executives who have come over from a couple different well-known agencies like Frog Design. And we are now, what we've been saying, the kind of innovation consultancy of now and the future. Skilled Creative is one of the agencies in there. There's another agency in there that very well because of the other spaces you're exploring, led by a woman named Kathy Hackle, who has been coined the godmother of the metaverse. She has this company called Futures Intelligence Group, which is amazing. They are one of the inaugural agencies within the business. And then the third business is this really amazing pillar of physical design, physical experiential design, a company called iCrave, led by a man named Lionel Ohanian, who's 20-year business. They have really been kind of defining physical space innovation for a couple decades now. Mm-hmm. And so when you smush these 3 companies together, you've got innovation across the physical, the digital, and the virtual realms. And so now we're going out to our partners saying, things are moving really quickly. It's wild out there. There's a lot to learn. Right. Work with Journey, and we can kind of guide you through these different emerging spaces. And we're launching with this group of folks. It's a really incredible group of technologists and creatives and business people and strategists. And we're on the lookout. We're looking for our next wave of agencies that will kind of roll up into the business. So really exciting time at Skilled, but also really exciting to be launching this business journey.
Well, that's hats off to you. You know,
Thank you.
to be acquired, you have to build a lot of value, and yeah, and then hats off to the you know, your colleagues now who are part of this vision. I think it's spot on. I think that I love the idea of the kind of the melding of the physical, digital, and virtual worlds coming together. And you know, that's especially close to my heart now with the launching of 3, our new conference, because that's really kind of what it describes is that we do have this new world, and there's a lot of disruption that's going to take place, or it's taking place, and there's a lot of information that needs to be discovered by people. They're looking for places for this, and it does sound like Journey is an ideal organization to really lead these brands, you know, through their journeys of transformation, because every business and every industry is transforming right now. And I think that, you know, it's interesting, you know, because this leap from conversational AI and voice really lends itself, I think, really well to this new world of decentralization and virtualization, and because voice plays such a role, and it's going to play a key role in everything metaverse.
Yeah, I think you'll see we're going to start putting, you know, narratives out in stories and kind of context around what the business is doing. And I was having a meeting yesterday. We were talking about one of the Journey clients that we have across a couple of the studios, and we were talking about how, you know, graphic interfaces were kind of the interface of Web 2. And of course, graphic interfaces will be important in Web 3, but the biggest growth of importance in an interface, I think you'll see, is voice user interfaces in Web 3. Because a lot of the environments that people are going to be looking to engage with are multidimensional, they're hands-free, they're maybe a lot of them are going to be in headsets, but certainly on phones and in different types of experiential spaces.
Right.
And so allowing people to use their voices or speech to text or text to speech within Web3 is going to be really, really important for navigation and wayfinding and moderation and a lot of different
moderation. I think is a massive one, right? ASR is so needed, and it's needed at scale because you've got to have moderation in there. And I know right now that that's a thorny wicket to solve. But you know, fortunately, there's been a lot of really great people that you and I know well, and across this industry, and other companies that have, you know, come up in that area of ASR, where there's been a lot of really good innovation of late. So let's get back to voice a little bit, and tell me the role that you think the assistants are going to be playing in this space, kind of going forward. I think that, you know, we watched a lot of developers come into the space. We watched a lot of developers move out of the space because the monetization wasn't quite there. But it's certainly an important channel. But tell me what you see the role of assistants in our homes and in our lives playing, you know, as we move forward as an industry.
It's interesting when you say assistant, I still, by kind of muscle memory, immediately think of Alexa.
Right.
And I'm working in this every day, and we're helping to define these kind of broader spaces. And I think people have to get comfortable with the fact that there's a lot of different types of assistants. It's not just Alexa anymore, even though there's a dominant market share for Amazon still in homes.
Sure.
But assistance means a lot of different things. I think that it's as we kind of discussed in the onset of the podcast, is it's not just about one modality anymore. It's about allowing people to use their voices across different modalities. I talked about this on a podcast a couple weeks ago, but I love that the industry has evolved. And in some ways, I really like that other areas have kind of gotten really shiny and hyped and interesting in Web3 and metaverse, NFTs and crypto, because a lot of people have left the conversational AI space to move into those other spaces. And what it's left is a group of people that are in conversational AI because they really are passionate about the underlying technology and the promise of the technology. And as I've said a couple of times before, there has been a ton of great technology launched in the last few years. There's been a lot of really phenomenal investment into the space in the last few years. And so what we're sitting on right now is a kind of a cleaned out roster, really good investment, really good technologies, and brands that have been working in the space for the last 3, 4, 5 years and understand that elements of conversational AI are now infrastructure. And so we're working a lot more with teams that aren't managing, pilot innovation budgets, but truly like product teams, marketing infrastructure teams, CRM teams, CMS teams, commerce teams.
Right.
I'm getting a little long-winded on this answer, but for me, the exciting part is that it's an infrastructural build play now that can be slow and meaningful.
Right.
And so I think that's the role in the next several years, is really, as we talked about before, enriching these infrastructures around conversational AI facilitating good experiences.
I don't think it was a long answer. I think it was the right, I think it
Yeah.
was very, very well thought out answer. And, it's interesting, as you were speaking, I was, we were born during the mobile kind of application, smartphone, revolution. And, it took a lot longer than people realize for smartphones to really revolutionize the way we interact with brands and services. And today there's an expectation that mobile applications are going to behave and act for us on a certain level, right? Where mobile now becomes sort of a very preferred interface, even over web, right? Because it's gotten that much better. And I think voice is on a similar kind of trajectory now. It does take time. This full transformation journey takes time. And I think, when you say, yeah, it's part of really part of a broad engagement platform, so that customer service improves and customer experience, automation, and all these things start to improve. So I don't think it's a long answer at all. I think it's where we are as an industry, and the assistants kind of bring it back to them. I believe they play a role as part of this infrastructure. They're part of the infrastructure that you can now utilize if you're a brand and you're looking to, interact and improve your engagement.
And I think what's funny is, our industry has had a lot of kind of interesting inside baseball ups and downs, but the broader audience and consumers, they don't care. They don't know that we were talking about this trend this month and next month. They just know that at some point in the last few years, they bought an Alexa device or a Google Assistant, or they got a car with an assistant in it. And all they know is that they're using it for a series of really good things. And every couple of weeks or every couple of months, they discover something new, and it gets smarter, and it talks to them a little bit better, and it understands them a little bit better. They're okay. They're not noticing the slow progression. We're hanging on every twist and turn in the industry.
Right.
But if you take a step back and you look at the progress over the last 5 years, it's pretty significant. So,
yeah,
we always talk about how when televisions entered the home, they didn't leave. They just evolved.
Yeah.
When phones entered the home, they didn't leave, they evolved, and they ended up in our pockets. And so voice devices, assistants, have entered the home, in the car, and the website, and your mobile phone. They're not leaving. They're just going to shift and change and evolve. And it's evidenced by, we're working on a lot of really exciting projects right now with clients. But even behind these projects that are launching in 2022, we have a roadmap, like a multi-year roadmap with a lot of partners.
Yeah.
And the stuff that we're talking about doing next year and the year after and the year after that build on what we're building this year is like wildly exciting. So we're strapped in. We're here for the ride.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love how you've laid that out. And I think it brings us to a really good spot here. But before we wrap this up, I would love for you to share, what would you tell somebody who's just kind of getting into the space? Maybe they're just coming out of college, university. They might have some technology. They might have a technology degree, maybe not, but they're looking at this space. What advice would you give to somebody, or maybe they're looking at shifting careers, right? The great migration. What would you say to somebody who's just maybe entering this space and they're watching this interview and thinking, how do I break into this space?
I would say it's cliche, but education. It's like, be as curious as humanly possible. If you're just getting in, explore all the different crevices of conversational AI. Take a look at the enterprise side of the business, take a look at the QSR side of the business, at the consumer marketing side of the business, at the commerce side of the business, at the tech layer side of the business, explore all of it, and then start to think about the areas that your brain gravitates towards, that you get excited about, that you see challenges you want to solve. Try to not lock in any, just absolute hypothesis weekend number one that you're researching. It takes time because the industry is moving quickly.
Yeah.
So just keep on being really curious, continue to research, continue to talk to people, find new perspectives in the space, talk to different people in the space, and then start to formulate your own vision of where in the space do you want to work, and then start networking in that space, or start creating a business in that space. And then once you've done that, put your head down and get to work, and don't get distracted until you pop up and you've got something meaningful that you've created.
It's great advice. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
We've been chatting with Brandon Kaplan. He's the CEO and founder of Skilled Creative, which has now been rolled into an exciting company called Journey. Brandon, where can people find out more information about Journey?
So we've launched our website, a handful of our social channels. Go to journey.world is our website. We're leveraging this new .world domain, which is
sounds great to me.
It's a growing Web3 related domain. Check it out.
Yep.
And then our social handles are at journey.world, word dot, not dot dot. And then Skilled Creative, we're always at Skilled Creative across all different channels. Check us out, reach out. We're always looking for people to talk to collaborate with. And as I mentioned, we're on the hunt for other agencies that could potentially join up with us and become a part of Journey. So we're always looking.
Hey, that door's open. I'm sure some people will definitely be knocking. So Brandon, great to catch up with you. I'm so glad we did. And to all of you out there at VOCE Global, thanks for tuning in, and hope you're having a great day. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.